The emergency klaxons had not sounded in the Galactic Council chambers for over 3 centuries. The last time had been during the Vorthok plague outbreak that nearly consumed the Andromeda Arm. Now, as representatives from 47 different species materialized through quantum gates, holograms, and biotransporters, the ancient hall buzzed with nervous energy and clicking mandibles, rustling feathers, and the low hum of electromagnetic life forms expressing anxiety. Ambassador Zexathara of the crystalline hegemony was the first to speak, her voice resonating through the chamber like wind chimes in a hurricane. Council members, we face an unprecedented crisis. The humans, those upstart mammals from the Sol system, have achieved something that should have been impossible. They have created a faster-than-light drive that operates on principles so fundamentally dangerous that it threatens the very fabric of our galaxy. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien languages. The insectoid Chithri clicked their approval, while the gas-based nebulons pulsed with alarmed colors. High Counselor Murdoch, an ancient being whose species had transcended physical form eons ago, materialized as a shimmering column of light at the center of the chamber. Silence. Murdoch's voice reverberated through every being's consciousness. Explain the nature of this threat, Ambassador. Zexathara's crystalline form flickered with data streams. 3 standard galactic days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected an anomaly near the human colony of New Geneva. What appeared to be a routine cargo vessel suddenly vanished. Not through any known FTL method, hyperspace, wormhole, generation, or quantum tunneling. The ship simply ceased to exist in our reality. The Valdorian representative, a towering reptilian with scales that shifted color with emotion, leaned forward. Ships are lost in hyperspace occasionally. Why? Does this concern us? Because, Zexathara continued, her voice growing more urgent. The ship reappeared 17 minutes later at Proxima Centauri journey. That should have taken 43 days, using conventional FTL. But that's not the concerning part. The concerning part is what it left behind. A holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing a section of space that appeared to be wrong. Reality itself seemed to ripple and fold, stars bending around an invisible wound in the cosmos. The humans have torn a hole in spacetime itself, Zexathara announced. Their drive doesn't move through space, it moves space around them. They've created a localized collapse of dimensional barriers, forcing our universe to accommodate their passage by literally rewriting the laws of physics in their immediate vicinity. The chamber fell silent except for the nervous rustling of various appendages. The economic implications alone were staggering. If humans could transport goods across the galaxy in minutes rather than months, they would dominate all trade routes. But the existential implications were far worse. Director Ulanath of the Preservation Corps, a being composed entirely of living mathematics, materialized as a complex geometric pattern. We've run the calculations. If this technology proliferates, if even a dozen ships use this method simultaneously, the cumulative effect could destabilize the quantum foam that holds our reality together. We're not talking about economic disruption. We're talking about the potential collapse of physical law itself. The ethereal collective's representative, a being of pure energy that communicated through controlled electromagnetic pulses, added its concerns. Our species has observed the humans for barely 2 centuries. In that time, they've progressed from chemical rockets to this reality warping abomination. They've compressed 10,000 years of normal technological development into what amounts to a cosmic blink of an eye. Ancient Counselor Velter, representing the first civilization that had seeded much of the galaxy's current technology, spoke in tones that resonated with the weight of millennia. When we first encountered the humans, we dismissed them as another primitive species destined to destroy themselves. Before achieving meaningful spaceflight, their propensity for warfare, their environmental destruction, their inability to form stable governments by all logical measures, they should have been extinct long ago. The Velter-S form shimmered with what might have been the equivalent of a sigh. Instead, they've done something we never anticipated. They've weaponized their own instability. While other species advance through careful research and gradual understanding, humans leap blindly into the unknown with a combination of intuition, desperation, and what they call creative problem solving. They don't ask whether something should be done, they ask whether it can be done. Ambassador Trinth of the Aquatic Confederation, whose species had mastered biotechnology to an art form, bubbled with distress. We've intercepted their communications. They're calling this technology the Alcubierre-Morrison drive, named after one of their theoretical physicists and apparently the engineer who made it functional. But the concerning part is their casual attitude toward its use. They're already discussing installing it on cargo vessels, passenger liners, even their military craft. The revelation sent waves of panic through the chamber. Military applications of reality warping technology were beyond nightmare scenarios. There's more. Zexathara continued grimly. Our intelligence suggests that the human engineer who created this drive, Dr. Sarah Morrison, developed it not through years of careful research, but through what humans call a breakthrough. She reportedly spent 72 hours without sleep, fueled by stimulants, and what she described as a really annoying problem that wouldn't let me rest. The collective gasp from the chamber was audible across multiple spectrums of sound and energy. To create reality-altering technology as a solution to insomnia was so fundamentally human that it terrified the galaxy's greatest minds. High Counselor Murdoch's form pulsed with concern. What do we know about this Dr. Morrison? She's 34. Standard years old, Zexathara replied, accessing the data streams flowing through her crystalline matrix. She has a doctorate in theoretical physics from something called MET, and a reputation for what humans call thinking outside the box. Her previous work included developing more efficient fusion reactors and improving their existing FTL communication systems, according to our sources. She created the reality warping drive because she was tired of waiting 6 weeks for decent coffee from Earth. The silence that followed was deafening. The greatest technological breakthrough in galactic history, and the greatest threat to universal stability, had been created because a human wanted faster coffee delivery. Director Ulaneth's mathematical form shifted into increasingly complex patterns. The energy requirements alone should have made this impossible. Our calculations show that to warp spacetime to this degree would require the power output of a small star. How are they powering this technology? That's perhaps the most disturbing aspect, Zexathara admitted. They're not using external power sources. The drive creates its own energy by harvesting quantum fluctuations from the dimensional tiers it creates. It's a self-sustaining system that grows more efficient with each use. The more reality they damage, the more power they have to damage it further. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. The humans had accidentally created a technology that fed on the destruction of universal stability, and they were using it to transport coffee. Ancient Counselor Velter's form dimmed with what could only be described as cosmic despair. In our billion years of existence, we've seen species rise and fall, technologies emerge and fade, but never have we witnessed a species that could accidentally threaten the fundamental structure of reality while trying to solve a convenience problem. The Chithri ambassador, whose species had evolved from hive-minded insects, clicked rapidly in agitation. The humans' lack of collective consciousness makes them unpredictable. They don't think as a unified species, they think as individuals with conflicting goals and motivations. How do we negotiate with a species that might use reality warping technology to deliver pizza? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations, with their careful planning and collective decision-making, were faced with a species that made universe-altering decisions based on personal convenience and individual inspiration. We've monitored their communications, Ambassador Trinth added, her aquatic form rippling with distress. Dr. Morrison has already received thousands of messages from other humans, suggesting applications for her technology. Suggestions include instant vacation travel, same-day shipping for online purchases, and something called the ultimate food delivery service. They're treating technology that could collapse reality as a business opportunity. The chamber erupted again, but this time with a different energy. Fear was giving way to a grim determination. The humans had created something that threatened everything, and they were completely oblivious to the danger. High Counselor Murdoch's form brightened with resolve. We cannot allow this technology to proliferate. The question is, how do we stop a species that has already demonstrated the ability to rewrite the laws of physics? The emergency session continued for 18 standard hours, during which the galaxy's finest minds proposed and discarded dozens of potential solutions. Military intervention was deemed impossible. How do you attack a species that could literally tear holes in reality to escape? Economic sanctions were meaningless against beings who could transport goods instantaneously across the galaxy. Even diplomatic pressure seemed futile when dealing with a species that viewed universe-threatening technology as a delivery service enhancement. It was during the 19th hour that everything changed. The chamber's quantum sensors detected an incoming transmission from the Sol system, specifically from Dr. Sarah Morrison herself. The collective intake of breath from 47 different species created a sound that had never before existed in the known universe. "Greetings, Galactic Council," came a cheerful human voice that seemed impossibly casual given the circumstances. The holographic display showed a woman in her mid-30s with disheveled brown hair, wearing what appeared to be a stained laboratory coat and holding a steaming cup of coffee. "I'm Dr. Sarah Morrison, and I understand you've been discussing my little faster-than-light project." The word little caused Ambassador Exethara's crystalline form to flicker with what could only be described as indignation. "Little, Dr. Morrison, you've created technology that threatens the stability of spacetime itself." Dr. Morrison took a sip of her coffee and nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, I've been getting that feedback a lot lately. The thing is, I think there might be a slight misunderstanding about what my drive actually does." Director Ulaneth's mathematical form shifted into increasingly complex patterns of disbelief. "Misunderstanding? We have recorded evidence of your vessel creating dimensional rifts that persist for hours after departure." "Oh, those," Dr. Morrison laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both disarming and terrifying to species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of cautious communication. "Those aren't dimensional rifts. Those are navigation markers. See, the thing about folding spacetime is that it's really easy to get lost if you don't leave breadcrumbs." The silence that followed was so complete that several species began to wonder if reality had actually collapsed, and this was what existed beyond the universe. High Counselor Murdoch was the first to recover. "Navigation markers, exactly." Dr. Morrison's enthusiasm was infectious in a way that made the Council deeply uncomfortable. "The tears in spacetime aren't damaged, they're intentional reference points. Think of them as cosmic GPS coordinates. The drive creates a quantum entanglement between the departure point and the destination, allowing for near-instantaneous travel while maintaining a stable connection to baseline reality." Ambassador Trent's aquatic form rippled with confusion. "But our sensors detected reality fluctuations that suggested dimensional collapse. Those are just side effects of the stabilization process," Dr. Morrison explained, as if discussing the weather. "The drive doesn't actually damage spacetime, it temporarily convinces local reality. That distance is more of a suggestion than a rule. Once the journey is complete, everything snaps back to normal. Well, mostly normal. There's usually a slight increase in local gravitational lensing, but that actually improves the view of nearby stars." The revelation that humanity had accidentally created a technology that improved astronomical observation as a side effect of reality manipulation was somehow the most disturbing thing the Council had heard yet. Ancient Counselor Velter's form pulsed with the weight of cosmic confusion. "Dr. Morrison, if this technology is as safe as you claim, why did our monitoring stations detect what appeared to be a complete breakdown of physical law?" Dr. Morrison's expression grew slightly sheepish. Well, the thing is, my first test run was with a cargo ship carrying a full load of Earth coffee beans. It turns out that coffee has some really interesting quantum properties. When exposed to folded spacetime, the beans created a resonance cascade that amplified the visual effects of the drive by about 3,000%. The collective realization that the galaxy's greatest crisis had been caused by caffeinated beverages interacting with reality-warping technology created a moment of such profound cognitive dissonance that several species briefly considered abandoning consciousness entirely. But Dr. Morrison wasn't finished. The good news is that I've solved the coffee resonance problem. The bad news is that I've discovered chocolate has similar properties, but in reverse. Where coffee amplifies the visual effects, chocolate creates temporal loops. My assistant accidentally created a 15-minute time loop last Tuesday when she brought Coco into the test lab. She's still finding versions of herself from different iterations of the loop. We're up to 6 now. The Chithuri ambassador's clicking became so rapid, it approached the frequency of a hyperspace communication beacon. You're creating temporal paradoxes as a side effect of confectionery interaction, not paradoxes. Dr. Morrison corrected with the patience of someone who had clearly explained this before. Temporal echoes. They're perfectly harmless, just slightly out of phase with baseline reality. The chocolates-induced copies fade after about a week, though they do retain all the memories of the original timeline, which has led to some interesting philosophical discussions during coffee breaks. Director Ulaneth's mathematical form began, calculating possibilities that hurt to contemplate. Dr. Morrison, what other food items have you tested with this technology? Well, pizza creates spatial inversions that are actually quite useful for storage. I've got a whole warehouse that's bigger on the inside now. And bananas. She paused to take another sip of coffee. Bananas are fascinating. They seem to exist in quantum superposition naturally. So when exposed to the drive's field, they achieve a state of temporal transcendence. I've got a banana that's been ripe for 3 weeks now without changing. The concept of transcendent fruit was somehow the point at which the galaxy's most advanced civilizations began to question their own sanity. But the real twist came when Dr. Morrison leaned forward with the expression of someone about to share exciting news. The reason I'm contacting you directly is because I've had a breakthrough. You see, I've been working on the power consumption issue. The drive currently requires about as much energy as a small star to operate, which is inconvenient for commercial applications. Ambassador's Exothara's crystalline form flickered with alarm. You're trying to make it more efficient. I've already made it more efficient. Dr. Morrison replied cheerfully. The new Mark II drive can operate on the power output of a standard fusion reactor. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is what I discovered about the quantum vacuum fluctuations the drive generates. She paused for dramatic effect, apparently unaware that she was creating dramatic tension for species that had existed for millions of years. It turns out that the quantum fluctuations aren't just random energy, they're actually information. Specifically, they're communication, signals from other versions of ourselves in parallel universes. The drive isn't just bending spacetime, it's creating a multiversal communication network. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of several species simultaneously experiencing existential crises. High Counselor Murdoch's form dimmed to barely visible levels. You're saying that your faster-than-light drive is accidentally creating contact with alternate realities, not accidentally, Dr. Morrison corrected. I noticed the pattern during my second week of testing. The signals were too coherent to be random quantum noise, so I built a translator. She held up a device that looked suspiciously like a modified coffee maker. This is the Interdimensional Communication Array, or as I call it, the ICA. It can establish two-way communication with any universe where humans developed similar technology. Would you like to meet Dr. Morrison from Universe B7742? She's the one who figured out how to make the drive work with tea instead of coffee. Fascinating woman in her reality. Humans evolved from cats instead of primates. The revelation that humans had accidentally created multiversal communication while trying to improve coffee delivery, and that there were cat-evolved humans in parallel universes, created a moment of such pure cosmic absurdity that reality itself seemed to pause in contemplation. But Dr. Morrison wasn't finished. The really interesting part is that Universe B7742 Morrison has been in contact with about 30 other versions of herself across the multiverse. We've formed what we're calling the Morrison Collective, a network of human scientists from different realities who are all working on similar projects. Ambassador Trent's aquatic form began producing bubbles at an alarming rate. How many versions of you are there? We've identified 847 so far. Dr. Morrison replied, with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. Though Morrison from Universe C3391 claims she's found evidence of over 10,000. She's the one who discovered that in some realities, humans never developed coffee at all. Can you imagine? Those versions of me have been working on this problem for decades without proper caffeine support. The concept of a multiversal network of reality warping human scientists, all connected through coffee-powered technology, was the point at which the Galactic Council began to suspect that the universe had a sense of humor and that it was specifically designed to torment advanced civilizations. Ancient Counselor Velter S. Form pulsed with what might have been the cosmic equivalent of a headache. Dr. Morrison, what exactly do you and your collective intend to do with this technology? Dr. Morrison's expression brightened with enthusiasm. Well, that's actually why I'm contacting you. The Morrison Collective has been discussing the ethical implications of multiversal travel, and we've decided that we need to establish some sort of regulatory framework. We were hoping the Galactic Council might be interested in expanding your jurisdiction to include parallel universes, the request that the galaxy's governing body expand its authority to include infinite alternate realities, made by a human who had accidentally created multiversal communication while trying to improve beverage delivery, represented a moment of such profound bureaucratic impossibility that several species began to contemplate the benefits of returning to primitive hunter-gatherer societies. But the final twist came when Dr. Morrison added, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and there's one more thing." Morrison from Universe D1157 wanted me to mention that in her reality, the Galactic Council actually invited humans to join about 200 years ago. Apparently, you found our chaotic innovation to be exactly what the galaxy needed to break out of technological stagnation. She wanted to know if you'd be interested in meeting her version of Ambassador Zexthara, who is apparently human in that universe and goes by the name Crystal. She's quite lovely, though she did mention that crystalline humans have some interesting dietary requirements. The revelation that there were parallel universes where humans were members of the Galactic Council, and where some council members were human, created a moment of such perfect symmetrical impossibility that the universe itself seemed to shrug in acknowledgement of its own absurdity. The emergency session had now stretched into its 22nd hour, and several species were beginning to show signs of what could only be described as cosmic stress disorder. The nebulons had shifted from their usual calming blue to an agitated orange that pulsed with increasing frequency. The Chithri had stopped clicking entirely, which in their culture was equivalent to a nervous breakdown. Even the mathematically based Director Ulaneth had begun forming geometric patterns that violated several fundamental principles of sacred geometry. But the real chaos began when Dr. Morrison casually mentioned, "Oh, Morrison from Universe FT891 just sent me a message. She says she's found a way to make the drive work with emotions instead of conventional energy. Apparently, human frustration is remarkably efficient at folding spacetime." High Counselor Murdoch S. Form flickered with what might have been the multi-dimensional equivalent of a migraine. Emotions? You're powering reality warping technology with feelings? Not just any feelings, Dr. Morrison clarified, consulting what appeared to be a modified smartphone that was somehow displaying messages from parallel universes, specifically the emotion humans experience when they're stuck in traffic. FT891. Morrison calls it commuter rage quantum dynamics. She's managed to power a trip to the Andromeda Galaxy using nothing but the collective frustration of Los Angeles rush hour. The concept that human annoyance at transportation delays could literally transport them across intergalactic distances was so perfectly circular that several council members began to suspect they were trapped in some sort of cosmic joke. Ambassador Zexthara's crystalline form had begun producing a sound that was part wind chime, part earthquake, and part existential scream. Dr. Morrison, how many of these alternate versions of yourself are working on variations of this technology? Well, that's where it gets interesting, Dr. Morrison replied, her enthusiasm undimmed by the growing horror around her. Morrison from Universe G443 has been keeping a log. According to her research, There are currently 3,847 known versions of me across the multiverse working on FTL technology. But here's the fascinating part, we're not all working on the same problem. She took another sip of coffee, apparently unaware that each casual gesture was causing galactic civilizations to question their life choices. For instance, Morrison from universe H7756 is working on a drive powered by human sarcasm. She's achieved theoretical speeds of up to 50 times light speed, but only when the pilot is sufficiently cynical about the journey. Morrison from universe I9981 has developed a system that runs on procrastination. The longer you put off starting your journey, the faster you arrive when you finally do. The ethereal collective's representative began pulsing with electromagnetic frequencies that roughly translated to "why do we even exist?" while the Valdorian ambassador's scales had shifted to a color that didn't exist in any known spectrum, suggesting emotional states that evolution had never intended. But the revelation that truly broke the Council's collective sanity came when Dr. Morrison added, "And then there's Morrison from universe J1337. She's concerning even by our standards." Director Ulaneth's mathematical form shifted into what could only be described as a question mark, made of pure anxiety. What has she done? She's created a drive that's powered by the very concept of impossibility, Dr. Morrison explained with the tone of someone discussing mildly interesting weather. The more impossible something should be, the more efficiently her drive operates. She's achieved instantaneous travel across the entire observable universe by convincing her drive that such travel is fundamentally impossible. The philosophical implications of technology that became more powerful by being told it couldn't exist created a moment of such perfect logical recursion that several species began to wonder if they had accidentally achieved enlightenment or had simply broken their own minds. Ancient Counselor Velter's form dimmed to barely perceptible levels. Dr. Morrison, what happens when these variations of your technology interact with each other? Funny you should ask. Dr. Morrison replied, with the smile of someone about to reveal something that would reshape the fundamental understanding of reality. Morrison from universe K24668 accidentally created a temporal cascade last week when she tested her emotion-powered drive at the same time I was running my coffee-enhanced system. The interaction created what we're calling a reality resonance. She paused to show them a device that looked like a coffee maker crossed with a mood ring. The result was the spontaneous creation of a pocket universe where all the laws of physics are subject to popular vote. The inhabitants, who appear to be sentient geometric shapes, just voted to make gravity optional on Tuesdays. The chamber had gone beyond silent. It had achieved a state of quietude so complete that it had become a philosophical concept rather than a mere absence of sound. High Counselor Murdoch's form pulsed with what might have been the cosmic equivalent of hyperventilation. You've created a universe where the laws of physics are democratic, not created. Dr. Morrison corrected, discovered. The pocket universe already existed. Our drives just made it accessible. Though I should mention that universe K24668 Morrison is having some issues with her local representatives, apparently. Sentient geometric shapes have very strong opinions about the speed of light, and they're considering a referendum to make it variable based on local traffic conditions. The revelation that there were now universes where fundamental constants were subject to majority rule caused Ambassador Trinth to produce bubbles in patterns that roughly translated to "I want to go home, but I'm no longer sure where home is." But the true cosmic horror was yet to come. Dr. Morrison's expression grew slightly more serious as she consulted her interdimensional communication device. There's something else. Morrison from universe L5599 has been monitoring the effects of our collective experimentation across the multiverse. She's discovered that our reality warping activities are creating what she calls narrative coherence fields. The Chithri ambassador managed to produce a single, questioning click. Basically, Dr. Morrison explained, the universe is starting to behave like a story. Cause and effect are becoming less important than dramatic timing. Coincidences are increasing exponentially. And most concerning of all, she paused for effect. the universe appears to be developing what can only be described as a sense of humor. As if summoned by her words, the chamber's lights began to flicker in a pattern that almost resembled laughter. Several species immediately began checking their life support systems, wondering if they were hallucinating due to oxygen deprivation. L5599. Morrison has documented cases of reality literally arranging itself for comedic effect. Dr. Morrison continued, in her universe, a diplomatic crisis between the major powers was resolved when both sides' most serious negotiations were interrupted by a flock of rubber ducks that materialized from nowhere and somehow achieved peace through interpretive dance. The concept that reality itself was becoming comedically conscious as a side effect of human tinkering with FTL technology represented a new category of existential crisis that no species had ever prepared for. But the real twist came when Dr. Morrison's expression shifted to something approaching genuine concern. The reason I'm bringing this to your attention is that Morrison from Universe M7731 has discovered something troubling. She's found evidence that there's a version of reality where humans never developed FTL technology at all. And in that universe, she paused, her usual cheerfulness faltering slightly. The galaxy is dying. The chamber's attention focused with laser-like intensity. For the first time in the conversation, Dr. Morrison had managed to say something that sounded genuinely ominous. M7731 Morrison has been monitoring that universe through quantum observation. Without human chaos disrupting the established order, the galaxy's civilizations achieved perfect technological stagnation. No new discoveries, no unexpected breakthroughs, no reality-warping coffee delivery systems. They became so efficient and so stable that they essentially stopped evolving. Her voice grew quieter, more serious. The universe is slowly running down. Stars are burning out and not being replaced. Civilizations are declining into peaceful irrelevance. The galaxy is achieving perfect entropy, a state of maximum stability that is, apparently, indistinguishable from death. The revelation that human chaos might be essential to the survival of the universe created a moment of such profound cognitive dissonance that several species began to wonder if they had been wrong about everything they thought they knew about progress, stability, and the nature of existence itself. M7731 Morrison has a theory. Dr. Morrison continued, her usual enthusiasm returning despite the gravity of the topic. She believes that the universe requires a certain amount of unpredictability to remain dynamic. Chaos isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. And humans, with our tendency to solve problems in completely unexpected ways, serve as the universe's chaos engine. She looked directly at the council, her expression mixing excitement with something that might have been responsibility. The question is, what do we do with this information? Because according to the Morrison Collective, we're not just building faster-than-light drives. We're apparently serving as the universe's immune system against the entropy of perfection. The realization that humanity's reckless innovation might be the key to cosmic survival, and that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had been unconsciously moving toward a state of existence that was indistinguishable from death, created a moment of such perfect irony that the universe itself seemed to pause in appreciation of its own narrative symmetry. Ancient Counselor Velter S. Form pulsed with what might have been the first genuine emotion the ancient being had experienced in millennia. Dr. Morrison, are you suggesting that your species' apparent inability to leave well enough alone is actually necessary for the continued existence of reality? I'm not suggesting it. Dr. Morrison replied with a grin that somehow managed to be both humble and terrifying. I'm saying that 3,847 versions of me across the multiverse have accidentally proven it, and now we need to figure out what to do about it. The chamber fell silent as the galaxy's most advanced civilizations contemplated the possibility that everything they thought they knew about progress, stability, and the nature of existence might be fundamentally wrong, and that their salvation might depend on embracing the very chaos they had spent millennia trying to avoid. But the final twist of Section 3 came when Dr. Morrison added, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and Morrison from Universe N8844 wanted me to mention that she's figured out how to make the drive work with hope instead of coffee." She says the results are spectacular, though she's having trouble with the side effects. Apparently, hope-powered FTL creates something called optimism radiation that makes everyone within a light-year radius spontaneously believe that everything will work out fine. She's accidentally created 17 galactic peace treaties and 3 interspecies marriages just by flying through populated systems. The revelation that human hope could literally radiate peace across star systems was somehow both the most beautiful and most terrifying thing the Council had ever heard. The 27th hour of the emergency session marked a turning point that would be remembered across the galaxy as the moment everything changed. It began when High Counselor Murdoch made a decision that defied millions of years of careful, calculated governance. Dr. Morrison, the ancient being, said, its form brightening with what could only be described as resolve mixed with cosmic resignation. We would like to formally invite humanity to join the Galactic Council. The silence that followed was so complete that several species began to wonder if time itself had stopped. Dr. Morrison blinked once, twice, then set down her coffee cup with the careful precision of someone who had just heard something that didn't quite compute. "I'm sorry, what?" she asked, her usual cheerfulness replaced by genuine confusion. Ambassador's Exothara's crystalline form flickered with what might have been the equivalent of nervous laughter. "We're inviting your species to join the governing body of the galaxy. Dr. Morrison, after 27 hours of discussion, we've reached a unanimous decision." But Dr. Morrison looked around the chamber, taking in the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. 12 hours ago, you were calling an emergency session because my coffee-powered FTL drive was threatening the stability of reality. Now you want us to help govern the galaxy? Director Ulanath's mathematical form shifted into what could only be described as a shrug made of pure geometry. "Dr. Morrison, in the past day, we've learned that your species has accidentally created multiversal communication, democratic pocket universes, emotion-powered faster-than-light travel, and technology that runs on the concept of impossibility, all while trying to improve beverage delivery." The director paused, allowing the absurdity to settle. "We've also learned that without human chaos, the universe appears to slowly die from the entropy of perfection. Given these circumstances, the question isn't whether humanity is ready to join galactic governance, it's whether we can survive without your particular brand of constructive insanity." Dr. Morrison's expression shifted through several emotional states that didn't have names in any known language. "So let me get this straight. You want humans to join the Galactic Council because we're too chaotic to ignore, too dangerous to oppose, and apparently too necessary to exclude?" Ancient Counselor Vultur's form pulsed with what might have been the cosmic equivalent of a nod. "Dr. Morrison, in our billions of years of existence, we have prized order, stability, and careful progress. We have built civilizations that last for eons, technologies that function flawlessly for millennia, and social structures that promote peace and prosperity across countless worlds." The ancient being's form dimmed slightly. "What we have not done, apparently, is create anything that could prevent the universe from slowly dying of its own perfection. Your species, in less than 2 centuries of space travel, has accidentally stumbled upon the solution to a problem we didn't even know existed." Dr. Morrison leaned back in her chair, and for the first time in the conversation, she looked genuinely thoughtful rather than merely enthusiastic. "You realize that if you invite humans to join the council, things are going to get complicated." "How complicated?" Ambassador Trinth asked, her aquatic form producing nervous bubbles. Dr. Morrison's grin returned, but it carried a new weight of responsibility. "Well, for starters, I should probably mention that Morrison from Universe 03377 has been working on a project she calls democratized reality engineering. She's created a system that allows individual humans to make localized changes to the laws of physics through what she calls informed consent of the universe." The chamber's response was immediate and visceral. Several species began making sounds that roughly translated to "Oh no, not again." "It's not as bad as it sounds," Dr. Morrison continued with the reassuring tone of someone who had clearly caused this reaction before. "The system has built-in safeguards. Users can only make changes that improve quality of life, and the universe has veto power over anything that might cause large-scale instability. She paused to consult her interdimensional communication device, though I should mention that, 03377, Morrison is having some issues with humans who keep trying to vote gravity optional in their personal spaces. Apparently, the universe finds human determination to ignore inconvenient physics laws to be charmingly persistent but ultimately exhausting. The revelation that humans in parallel universes were conducting negotiations with the universe itself about which laws of physics should be optional created a moment of such perfect surreal bureaucracy. That reality seemed to file its own complaint about working conditions. But the real emotional core of Section 4 came when Dr. Morrison's expression grew serious. Before we talk about humanity joining the council, there's something you need to understand about us. We don't solve problems the way you do. We don't carefully analyze all possible outcomes and choose the most stable solution. We look at a problem and ask, what's the weirdest way this could possibly work? And then we try it. She stood up, her coffee cup forgotten. When I created the Alcubierre-Morrison drive, I wasn't trying to revolutionize galactic transportation. I was annoyed that my coffee was taking 6 weeks to arrive from Earth, and I thought, what if I could just convince space to be smaller? It never occurred to me that this was impossible. It never occurred to me that I might accidentally create multiversal communication or threaten the stability of reality. Her voice grew stronger. That's what humans do. We solve problems by ignoring the fact that they're supposed to be unsolvable. We innovate by accident. We revolutionize things by being too stubborn to accept limitations. The chamber was completely focused now, every species hanging on her words. If you invite us to join the council, Dr. Morrison continued, you're not just getting humanity's chaos, you're getting our refusal to accept that anything is impossible. You're getting our tendency to turn cosmic threats into convenience technologies. You're getting a species that will look at the heat death of the universe and say, hold my beer. I've got an idea. She looked directly at High Counselor Murdoch. The question is, are you really ready for that? The ancient being's form pulsed. With what might have been the first genuine laughter it had experienced in eons, Dr. Morrison, after spending 27 hours learning about coffee-powered reality engines, emotion-based FTL drives, and pocket universes with democratic physics, I believe we are as ready as any rational beings can be for complete irrationality. But the moment that truly changed everything came when Dr. Morrison made her counteroffer. I accept your invitation, she said, on one condition. The Morrison Collective wants to establish what we're calling the Multiversal Stability Initiative. It's a joint project between all known versions of myself across parallel realities, working in cooperation with the Galactic Council to ensure that our reality warping experiments don't accidentally destroy everything. She grinned. Think of it as organized chaos. We'll keep innovating in completely unpredictable ways, but we'll do it with proper oversight and safety protocols. Well, safety protocols that make sense to humans anyway. Director Ulaneth's mathematical form shifted into what could only be described as cautious optimism. What would these safety protocols involve? For starters, no more than 3 impossible things before breakfast. Dr. Morrison replied with complete seriousness. No reality warping technology powered by human stubbornness, without proper emotional dampening fields, and absolutely no experiments involving chocolate and time travel on the same day. The fact that these safety protocols sounded both reasonable and completely insane was somehow perfectly appropriate. But the real emotional climax came when Dr. Morrison added, there's one more thing. Morrison from Universe P4466 wants to share something with you. She's the one who's been studying the universe where humans never developed FTL technology. The chamber's attention focused with laser-like intensity. She's found a way to help that universe, Dr. Morrison said, her voice soft with genuine emotion. The Morrison Collective has developed what we're calling chaos seeds, small, controlled injections of human-style unpredictability that can help stagnant civilizations rediscover innovation. She looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of every species present. We want to save that universe. not through conquest or forced change, but by gently introducing the kind of constructive chaos that keeps reality dynamic. We want to teach them to ask what if instead of why not. The revelation that humanity wanted to use their reality warping abilities to save a dying universe by teaching other species to be constructively chaotic was the moment when the Galactic Council finally understood what they were truly dealing with. These weren't just unpredictable primitives who had stumbled onto dangerous technology. They were a species that had accidentally become the universe's guardians against the entropy of perfection, and they wanted to use that responsibility to help others. Ancient Counselor Velter S. form brightened to levels not seen in millions of years. Dr. Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally welcome humanity as our newest member species. May the universe survive what we've just agreed to. The chamber erupted in what could only be described as cautious celebration, mixed with existential acceptance. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had just agreed to be governed alongside a species that powered starships with coffee and solved cosmic problems by being too stubborn to accept that they were impossible. Dr. Morrison raised her coffee cup in a toast to organized chaos, impossible solutions, and the continuing survival of reality as we know it. May we never be so organized that we forget to be chaotic, and may we never be so chaotic that we forget to be organized. As the session officially ended, Ambassadors Exathara turned to High Counselor Murdoch. Do you think we made the right decision? The ancient being's form pulsed with what might have been cosmic contentment. Ambassador, in the past 27 hours, we've learned that the universe requires chaos to survive, that perfection leads to death, and that the most advanced technology in the galaxy was created by someone who was annoyed about coffee delivery times. I'm not sure right and wrong are the appropriate categories anymore. The being paused, considering the implications of their decision. But I do know this. For the first time in millions of years, I'm genuinely curious about what happens next, and perhaps that's exactly what the universe needs. As the various species began to depart, preparing to return to their home worlds with news that would reshape galactic civilization, Dr. Morrison's interdimensional communication device chimed with an incoming message. Oh, she said, reading the display with the expression of someone who had just remembered something important. Morrison from Universe Q7799 wanted me to mention that she's figured out how to make the drive work with human curiosity instead of coffee. She says the results are extraordinary, though she's having some side effects. High Counselor Murdoch S. form flickered with what might have been resigned anticipation. What kind of side effects? Dr. Morrison's grin was radiant with the promise of future chaos. Apparently, curiosity-powered FTL doesn't just transport you to your destination. It transports you to the most interesting thing happening anywhere in the universe at that moment. She's accidentally solved 17 scientific mysteries, prevented 4 wars, and discovered 3 new forms of life just by trying to go to the grocery store. The revelation that human curiosity could literally seek out the most interesting events in the universe was somehow the perfect ending to a day that had redefined the nature of existence itself. As the emergency session finally concluded, one thing had become clear: the galaxy would never be the same. But perhaps, for the first time in millions of years, that was exactly what it needed. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all, and it had just given itself the perfect punchline: a species so chaotic that they could accidentally save reality by trying to improve coffee delivery, and so curious that they could solve the universe's greatest mysteries by attempting to run simple errands somewhere in the quantum foam that held reality together. The cosmos itself might have been laughing, and for the first time in eons, that laughter sounded like hope.